All right, we are back for the 10th edition of the Osceola Tailgate. Guys, it's hard to believe that the season is hurtling by so quickly, but we are about 16 days from the regular season being over, which is hard to believe. And, of course, glad to have all four of us back for this Osceola Tailgate. And my name is Pat Burnham. I'm the host of the show, and I'm joined by former FSU offensive lineman Mark Salva, Osceola recruiting analyst Charles Fishbein, and FSU alum and Tampa radio sports talk show host JP Peterson, who actually just hosted the Florida Hall of Fame Awards, Sports Awards induction ceremony. So
cool.
Want to hear about that. I think there was a former FSU player that went into the Florida.
You are correct, sir.
Hall of Fame.
Dexter Jackson.
Did Barry Smith go in, or has he been in?
Yeah, that's right. Barry Smith and Dexter Jackson.
Yeah.
Two Noles, two Buccaneers. Yep.
Well, guys, Mark and I have had a ton of time to talk about last week, and we have. And, as we do every week, we want to go back and give you guys a chance to talk about the Florida State-Miami game. We've gone back over the losses. Certainly want to take some time to talk about this win and hear what you guys thought about it. And we'll start with JP, because my father's always told me you can't hide money. And JP may have to leave the show to talk to his accountant.
My accountant, I think, has been on a Vegas bender for about a month. He's been MIA, and I'm trying to get some tax stuff done. So if he calls me on the hotline, we have the special hotline number, Joey P. I gotta run and take that call, because it's you don't get an audience.
What we're going to see is a lighted dollar sign start going around the room. Like the bat signal, the dollar signal.
The bat signal.
All right, JP. Listen, it was obviously an impressive win. It was dominating in every conceivable fashion. But just give us your thoughts on FSU Miami.
Glorious, wonderful. It's just good to see this team put together two really, really solid wins back to back against some, we're some bad teams, but even in a rivalry game like Miami, that they're going to give their best effort. And Florida State just dominated them up front, both sides of the ball. I think the skill positions for Florida State are just really, really starting to show in their receivers, their running backs. We finally got a competent offensive line. It's amazing how good an offense can look when you can get a little bit of time for Jordan Travis and open up some running lanes for some really talented backs. And I think Mike Norvell has really found a sweet spot now with his play calling and spreading the ball around. FSU is a very, very difficult team to defend right now. They can get you in so many different ways. And when you can run it and you can throw it and you've got great one-on-one matchups, it's just really hard for the defense to kind of figure it out. And we're seeing that. And 2 weeks in a row, they've laid it on, I'm not going to say great teams, but they've done what they should do to inferior teams. And that's something we haven't seen in a long time. So great progress. Could not be more pleased with where the program is going right now. And I'm just excited to see if they can finish it out, get wins over Syracuse, Louisiana, and Florida, and just keep building, man. Really, really impressive performance.
It's always interesting. It's always funny because you don't hear it much when you hear Miami considered an inferior opponent. Of course, I like it when all the Florida teams are good. I'm probably an outlier, but it is funny. Sometimes it is funny to watch Miami and Florida struggle a little bit. And it was crazy. Fish, what are your thoughts on the game last weekend?
Yeah, it's the first game I got to see live, so it's a lot different watching live than on TV. And I mean, you saw it early that Miami was going to be no match. Just physically up front, the skill positions, seeing them come out, knowing what they've struggled with this year, pass defense. And I was kind of surprised to see Miami come up and play press and play a physical front. They brought a lot of guys into the box. And I was surprised that they were that aggressive early on. I thought they would play off and let Jordan try to, basically keep everything in front of them. They came up and played straight man coverage, got beat on a big play, and that was it. The game was over. You could tell. I watched Miami practice like 2.5 weeks ago. They don't have the ability to play point for point or play a game where they're trying to keep up with Florida State. When Florida State got rolling early, it was over. And I mean, it was an impressive win. Good teams beat bad teams like that. That's what you want to see. You know, Florida State has gradually got to this level where they're starting to beat teams that they're supposed to, and to the level they did the other night. You couldn't predict that type of blowout, but you see one of these on each side once every 10 years where one of the teams gets beat. FSU had their moment 2 years ago. It happens. Most of these games are close, but Florida State was by far the better team. Anybody that watched that game could tell you the players on the field, Florida State had the better players across the board.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Well, listen, a couple of big things coming out of the victory. Obviously, FSU is now bowl eligible for the first time since 2019. And listen, there's some important games to go as it pertains to the pecking order of AC. There's a lot of 6-3, 7-2, 5-4 teams in the ACC right now. So these games will be important as far as pecking order. But I do have a question for you guys. I did not watch the college football playoff rankings just because there's too much talking. I'd rather just them put the rankings out, and I'm critiquing talking as I host the show, so that's kind of screwed up. But anyway, FSU finds itself at 23 in the college football rankings, or playoff rankings, or ratings, whatever you call them. At the beginning of the season, if I had told you in week 9 or going into week 10 that FSU would be in the poll, college football playoff poll, would you have thought I was crazy?
Not me. I expected them to at some point get ranked. You know, I think I predicted that they would finish in the top 20 at the beginning of the season. So I think they might end up there, hopefully, if they can continue to win. I thought they would be the top-ranked team in the state of Florida, although UCF has got them by a little bit. And, boy, I would love to get UCF in a bowl game. Please make that happen. Please make that happen.
In Tampa.
Yeah, that would be fun. Just like Florida and UCF last week, and they packed the house. I mean, it would be fantastic. You pack Raymond James Stadium. I mean, it would be good for the state of Florida. Be really, really fun bowl game. So, I expected it. I'm not going to lie to you. I thought Mike Norvell could do this, but good to see.
Yeah. Fish, let me ask you this. A lot of recruits were at that game. A lot of recruits, a couple that stick out in mind. Amari Brown, Reuben Bain, all have Miami and Florida State involved in their recruitment. That's not the only two in those guys' recruitment. But would a thorough butt whipping like that have any influence on – I know, listen, it's a loaded question with recruiting anymore with the NIL. It's not just where you want to go to school. Right? We see players making decisions based off the most money, which is crazy to even think about. Of course, now that's been going on behind closed doors for a while. But anyway, what are your thoughts? How does that impact the recruiting trail for Florida State, particularly in South Florida?
It's definitely not going to hurt. I think it really helps with Amari Brown because he's on the fence on who to choose. It's really FSU, Miami for him right now. So someone like that, it can make an impact. Reuben Bain's down to 4 or 5 schools. It's Oklahoma, Auburn, Alabama, Florida State, Miami. So it's a little different. Everybody thinks Miami's a shoo-in with him because he has a family member on the staff. But I've been told multiple times that some of his family does want him to leave South Florida. That's happened many times before. You've seen guys that were so-called stone cold locks to Miami that the family just wants them to get away, experience something different. But it can't hurt. I mean, I think most of Florida State, Florida State's down to a handful of recruits. There aren't a whole lot of guys on the board. We've had this on the message boards where people are like, well, why isn't more going on? Well, listen, they got 15 kids committed. They're going to probably take 2 to 3 more, maybe 5 tops. Most of the guys that they're going to recruit the rest of the way are going to be either junior college or portal kids. That's how recruiting is now. I think, signing day is kind of anticlimactic now. Most of the guys that you're going to land are going to be before then, minus 1 or 2 guys,
Yeah. Well, Florida State has hit reset, started getting preparations for Syracuse this past Sunday. Syracuse is one of the better stories of the ACC in college football at the midway point of the season, 6-0 and ranked. They have since lost their last 3 games and are identical to Florida at Florida State's record at 6-3. Have lost to Pitt, Notre Dame, and Clemson over the course of the last 3 weeks. head to the Carrier Dome, which is an unusual place to play. I don't know, Mark, I believe you've been there. You're kind of familiar with the surroundings. Kind of a unique place to play. Garrett Schrader, the quarterback for Syracuse, who missed the Pitt game. I talked with Brent Axe from Syracuse ESPN Radio and Syracuse.com earlier in the week, and he's expecting Garrett Schrader to play in this game. But guys, just your overall until we can talk a little bit about Syracuse's offense and defense, but just a little bit of your overview of this game. How do you feel about Florida State going into this game? Listen, it's going to be from offensive and defensive perspective. FSU is one of the best big play offenses in all of college football. Syracuse is one of the best big play as far as not allowing big plays. Syracuse is one of the best defenses in the nation in doing that. Sometimes stats don't mean anything, but they do have one of the best running backs in the nation, and Sean Tucker, and an opportunistic defense. But Mark, just kind of your overview heading into this game and your thoughts.
It's going to be interesting for me because just the mentality of FSU going into that game after this big win and all the fanfare surrounding it. I did like hearing some of the reports come out of practice and whatnot. It sounded like they kind of got back to work a little bit, But listen, going up there is different. It's a dome environment. It's just a different college football feel up there. Top it all off, I think it's senior day for them, if I heard that right. Yeah. So that in and of itself is going to make it unique and a little emotional for them, right? And look, they're a dangerous team. Like I fully expect Schrader to play, like you said, and he makes their team go, and he makes them dangerous. I mean, we struggled with him last year, right? That big run he had against us last year, and that's we don't do well against running quarterbacks. The other thing we don't do well against are 3-5-3 defenses. When you have a lot of moving parts on that second level where they can come from all over the place. And now the plus on that is that they seem to be a little susceptible to the run because they're not the biggest defense around, but they move around a lot, and we just don't seem to do real well against that kind of amoeba-like defense where people can really move around a lot. And so identifying players and all that's going to be critical for them. So they're a dangerous team,
Schrader is a much better passer this year than he was last year. He is their second leading rusher in both attempts and yardage. So listen, 82% of their rush offense goes through those two guys. But he also has improved his passing. He is a 67% completion percentage this year versus 53 last year. Has already thrown for more yards through 8 games this year than he did through 12 last year. I agree with you, Mark. This is an easy game where you could overlook, hey, they've lost 3 in a row. They're not playing particularly well. Schrader's beat up. They're predictable in who's going to get the ball, not necessarily how they get the ball. But Tucker's the second leading receiver, both in receptions and yardage. So they're simplistic in that nature. But Schrader has improved from a year ago. Tucker's good no matter what. I mean, he's been dinged up a little bit, but they think he's healthy. I do think this is a game that's going to be a little bit tougher than what most people anticipate.
Yeah, I know FSU is a 7-point favorite. Just watching a few of the shows today, a lot of people were mentioning that Syracuse may have 3 defensive linemen out, or they've been missing 3 defensive linemen since they started 6-0. And they're having a big time trouble stopping the run. So if that's the case, to me, this is just more about FSU doing what FSU does. Don't worry too much about what Syracuse is going to do and how they're going to attack you. Just line up and run the football. It's what you do best. You got explosive backs. Just physically go out there and pound them early on and try and take the crowd out of the game. It's going to be a lot of emotion in that dome. Here comes Florida State and senior day and all that stuff. So you're going to have to deal with that punch, that emotional punch early on, but just, stick to the game plan and if you can physically just start gashing them with runs, that's the best way to demoralize a team that's injured, especially on defense, and take the crowd out of the game. So I think this is a good matchup for FSU. I know their defense can be a little bit confusing, but you could take the confusion out of it by just pounding their ass. So
that's what Pitt did.
I think
Pitt played the game in a phone booth and ran right through them. You know, so
there you go. This is your kind of game, Mark. Just line up and go get them, right?
Just take the Miami game plan and run with it.
Yeah, and to your point, JP, they were very good against the run early in the season. They have had some injuries, which, listen, everybody's got injuries, but they have given up over 245 yards on the ground in 2 of their last 3 games. And even the good game, which was against Pitt ran for 160, but Clemson and Notre Dame both ran the ball very successfully against them. And, of course, they are pretty good. They're 6th in the nation in pass defense. So to your point, Mark's point and your point, I think that's what Florida State will do. Is I think they'll try to run the ball at them. You've got 3 healthy running backs back now with Trey Benson and Trayshawn Ward did not play last week because they did not need him. And of course, your boy Toafili, JP, is like a silent assassin. If you took the last 3 games, he has over 115 yards per game in total offense. Listen, he goes about it quietly. He does not get any of the publicity that most of the other guys get, mostly because you don't see him on social media. You don't say a whole lot. But I agree. Fish, what do you think?
Yeah, it just comes – they got to get off to a good start. You don't want to come out and be sluggish and try to grind it out. You know what? Punch them in the mouth, like JP said, and get Syracuse out of the game right away. They have the better team. There's really no reason for them not to come out and do that. They've done it the last 2 weeks. Syracuse does have some good players. Yeah, they have Tucker, the running back. I think Aronce Gadsden Jr. is going to give FSU some problems. But Florida State should be able to handle these guys. It is a tough game because being in the dome and FSU on the road outside of this Miami game has struggled in these type of games in the past. So they got to just come out, play sound football, don't make any mistakes, and take Syracuse out of the game right away.
Yeah, and Aronde Gadsden is a tremendous player, 6'5", 216, the son of former Miami Dolphin Aronde Gadsden Sr. Listen, he's had 41 catches for 677 yards, but the next leading receiver, I'm talking about from the wide receiver spot, only has 19 catches. Sean Tucker is their second leading receiver. Mark, how do you approach it from a defensive standpoint when you know the team you're facing is so reliant on 3 individual players?
Yeah, well, don't be fooled about that, because how do they attack you? They attack you. They can line up and run the ball with a great running back. They can pull it, run it with a quarterback, which sometimes we don't do so great on. And then if you start overcommitting to that, now you got a great receiver on the outside that you can make some plays with. So, they present problems, and they seem to be pretty clever, especially when Schrader's in there, in utilizing that and utilizing those 3 aspects. So, we just got to be sound. It's almost like assignment football. It's almost like playing an option. You got to make sure that you have great gap integrity. You got to look. Our strength is going to be our front 7 versus their offensive line. I don't think their offensive line has done a great job. I don't think they're just totally outstanding. So our defensive line is healthy. They're playing really well, and we need to make sure and leverage that and not give them lanes and make sure that we're putting pressure on Schrader and not let him get out on the perimeter or step up through the pocket and find little running lanes there. We got to make sure that we got all those covered. So Schrader's the key to the whole thing. You take him out of the game, and you got a chance. You got a good chance. So that's the key. I don't foresee them just lining up and handing it off to Tucker and just running it down our throats. I don't think that's going to be the deal. It's going to be Schrader's ability to improvise, run the ball, called runs, and then opportunistic throwing. Yeah,
and listen, their offensive line is much better than it was the last time we saw it. But to your point, still not great. 112th in sacks allowed, 75th in TFLs allowed, and those guys have 139 career starts out of the starting 5. You would think that there would be a little bit more production. And listen, Florida State, we saw it on Saturday night. It was the first time they've pretty much had their entire complement of defensive players available to them. Fabian Lovett, I think Bethune, he was a little bit limited. We saw more of DJ Lundy than we thought, but I want to get all three of your impression on this. But when you have a healthy Jamie Robinson, a healthy Jared Verse, Fabian Lovett, and Tatum Bethune, how good can this defense be going forward? Thankfully, through the next 4 games.
Well, let me take this one first because Joey P's on the line. I got to call him. By the way, he says put your entire savings on FSU and lay the 7. That's from Joey. Listen, this defense looks fantastic. They played with such emotion last week, and I really like the way they're playing physically up front. Lovett and Verse healthy makes a great. I mean, they're just so much better. I think it wasn't EJ Manuel who mentioned it first, but on the ACC huddle, I think it was EMAC, and everybody agreed that with those guys healthy, FSU may be the best team in the conference. They said that. And I think FSU needs to play to that. Go out and take care of business here, and this is a team that's been reeling with 3 straight losses, and there'll be a lot of emotion, but you're the better football team right now. And just go out and take care of business. And that defense has been dominating. Like you said, when you have limited options, right, when we know where the ball's going, you should be able to zero in on those guys and make them pay and get them, they're a little dinged up already. Just hit them hard, bring that lumber early on, and take them out of the game. All right, I'm out of here.
All right, JP, we appreciate it. We'll talk to you either later if you want to jump back on when you're done collecting your money. Or
this might be a long call.
All right, we'll talk to you next week.
Good luck.
Boys, see you.
All right, Fish, what do you think about the defense with all 4 of those dudes healthy?
It's amazing how much better they are with Lovett and with Verse in there. That they make a big difference. I didn't really know that Jamie Robinson was really that injured or had issues. I thought he was pretty healthy all the year. So that's kind of surprising hearing you say that. But yeah, with those two, their defense is a lot better. They get a better pass rush because Verse is so good at getting up the field. And Lovett does a very good job against the run. So those two are key. They got to stay healthy the rest of the year for them to finish out this run because without them, I think they're just not as good.
No, I wasn't saying – Jamie's been dinged up in games. There's no doubt about that. But I was saying when all 4 of those guys are healthy and on the field together, I think it's a different defensive unit. Because he is such a big playmaker and obviously had a lot of big plays in the Miami game. But Mark, what are your thoughts when all 4 of those guys are lubed up and going?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of shades of what an FSU defense is supposed to look like. You got guys that can fly around. Versus acceleration, his closing speed is incredible when he gets around the corner. I mean, when Van Dyke was running in the end zone and threw that ball sideways and hurt his shoulder, did you see how quick Verse covered like 10 yards? I mean,
yeah.
it was I'm like going, wow, that guy's got incredible closing speed. And then Jamie, again, just a smart player, good tackler, and just brings confidence and attitude. That's the thing about when those guys are in the game, it's just a different confidence level for the whole entire defense. And they make everybody around them play better. Right. And I tell you what, with them being back and, oh, by the way, everybody else being healthy, like Malcolm Ray and those guys. And yeah. I've mentioned it before with defensive end, Pat. I forget guys' names all the time.
Yeah.
Huh? Patrick Payton. With him. And then again, being able to move Briggs inside or move him around in pass rushing situations. I mean, we have like you said, we have a full complement of defensive players. So now you got guys rotating in and playing fresh. So those 4 guys can be in the game when it really matters, right? And so that just helps. And so it's really good to see it all kind of come together right at the right time, and see these guys grow and mature and see the whole defense play the way it was designed.
Yeah. Hey, I do want to ask you guys this. Syracuse they're mostly redshirt sophomores or true sophomores in the secondary. They got one redshirt junior and a junior or senior that play in a backup role, and they're without Garrett Williams, but they are 6th rated pass defense in the nation. 2 questions for you, Mark. A, what do you see on what you've seen that schematically causes issues for opposing offenses against that defense in the past game? And as we've talked about before, sometimes stats can be misleading. They have played Louisville, UConn, Purdue, which Purdue's got a good passing offense, but they held them to 181. But the others, Virginia, Wagner. I'm sorry, I'm reading. Let me get.
Well, Notre Dame, Clemson.
Purdue passed for 424. But other than that, Wagner 19, NC State without Devin Leary 160, 157 for Clemson, 116 for Notre Dame, 176 for Pittsburgh. Is it who they're playing? Are they that good? What do you see?
I think it's a little combination of who they're playing and what people are doing against them, because against the run, they're not great, right?
Right.
And yeah. So if you're running the ball, you're not throwing it. So by virtue of that, your pass yards aren't going to be that great. But 6 is still a pretty impressive statistics when you stack them up nationally. But I mean, they don't take a lot of risks in the back end, and so guys are typically facing the receivers, and they're not necessarily trailing or trying to play a lot of man coverage. From a little bit I've seen, but I think it's a more function. They've played a lot of struggling quarterbacks, and that's the truth of the matter.
Yeah, Fish, what are your thoughts on their pass defense?
Well, they got a very good defensive backs coach in Nick Monroe. He does a very good job of coaching those guys up. He also does a good job of recruiting. I mean, Deuce Chestnut was, I think, either a high 4 or 5-star kid that they beat out some big time programs for. So he does a very good job on that back end. They have some talent in their secondary. I did not think they'd play that well this year. How they've played overall has kind of been surprising, because when I watched them in their spring game, their D-line looked very small. So now I understand why they're struggling to stop the run, because they're not real big up front. I mean, they're going to be one of the smaller teams that you'll see that FSU faced this year up front. So if this is going to come down to, FSU not being over, you got to be patient, take what the defense gives, and don't make those mistakes. You could sit there if you can run the football. Don't be patient, take the 3-yard gains. You don't have to force the ball down the field, because I think Syracuse is one of those teams. I saw it in the Louisville game earlier this year. Louisville moved the ball on them, but they got impatient, and their quarterback made some mistakes. They turned the ball over, and that's why Syracuse won that game. That could happen this weekend if you just get impatient. This is a type of team that things may not go right the right way right away early in the game. So you be patient, kick the ball, don't turn it over, play field position. And when the opportunity's there to take advantage of the big plays, take it. Just don't force it. FSU doesn't need to force anything anymore. It will come. They've got the playmakers on offense. They could take their time, and eventually the dam will break. I don't think they need to be super aggressive, especially in a game like this.
No, and I don't think they will be super aggressive, but I bet they take their shots. And I bet, look, Miami was supposed to be a great run defense last week, and we, Mike took advantage of it and ran the ball, right? I mean, Clemson's supposed to be a great run defense. We ran the ball pretty good against Clemson for the most part. So, I don't think we're going to do what we do. And the great thing about this offense is I think they do a great job of scheming and creating matchups. And, I'm sure through film study and whatnot, they've got some ideas about how they think they can throw the ball on this team. And they're going to test them early, I think, and try to take their shots. And it may not be deep shots. It may be, different ways we, throw some intermediate stuff and, but they're going to try to get plays down the field for sure. But to your point, though, Fish, being impatient is not the way to do it. I agree. You just don't want to get back there and start chunking it deep. But I bet you they scheme some stuff through formations and motions and personnel and stuff that they find ways to throw the ball pretty good.
Yeah. Hey, Mark, did you play in the Carrier Dome or coach? I think you've either played or coached.
No,
right?
I was coaching. It was at 92, I think, first time.
Yeah. What is I've been up there at least 3 times when I was with South Florida, maybe 4 out of the 7 years we were there. I can't remember if we played them odd or even numbered years, but it's kind of a different place to play. Even when they don't sell out, it can be an extremely loud place, even with 40,000 people in there. It's for a long time didn't have AC, even though it was called the Carrier Dome, and it's kind of an interesting building, interesting atmosphere. Even the coaches' booths are not really in a press box; they're right above the stands and the top of the stands. Anyway, just talk about a little bit about your experience, just the atmosphere in the Carrier Dome.
No, I mean it's loud, relatively speaking, because all that noise is caught in there. It's just a different atmosphere, college football wise. It's not the South. It's I don't know. It's hard to quantify it. It's just different. Yeah, I was there for the Terrell Buckley fake fair catch punt return, right, for the touchdown. But yeah, no, again, it's just, I think Mike does a good job of getting the team ready in terms of mentally, and just don't let all the trappings, don't let all that stuff enter in. You just stay focused on what's going on between the lines, and I think they'll be fine.
Any concerns over a Miami hangover, Fish?
You always have concern with that because these are college kids. It's easy to get up for Miami. That game, I remember I talked to Kevin Steele once about this. I brought this up on another podcast, is that getting guys up for Miami, he didn't get Miami up for FSU last week, but he said usually the games like FSU against Clemson, FSU Miami, FSU Florida, it's easy. He goes, it's the Wake Forests, the Syracuses, the games that your team just expects to, walk into a stadium and beat because they got better players. And it doesn't always work out that way. Like I said, one thing goes wrong early in a game, a fumble, a punt block, something that goes against you, and then all of a sudden you're trying to climb out of a hole. So that's why I said it. I think it's very important that Florida State gets off to a good start and gets some good momentum, because you don't want to be playing catch up in a game like this. This is the type of game you get behind and you may never have the lead. So I think it's very important, once again, for them to get off to a good start, get the lead, and put the pressure on Syracuse to play catch up.
Yeah, Mark, we talked a little bit about this on the Seminole sideline Sunday night, but just for people that did not hear your take on this, what are your concerns about a potential hangover coming off a huge win against the arch rival?
Well, yeah, I mean, at first you start thinking about, well, are they looking ahead? Are they looking ahead to, going to a bowl? Are they trying to get to a good bowl game? We got Florida coming up, Louisiana before that. Are they looking ahead? And I'm not so much concerned about that. I was more concerned about, all right, you just had a big emotional win on the road against a rival, and everybody telling you how good you are, and everybody just generally feeling good. The ability to put that aside, it's kind of uncharted waters for this team, and so we won't know until they kick the ball off on 8:00 on Saturday night. We won't know, and it sounded like it started off a little slow on Tuesday, but Mike said they came around towards the middle end of practice and had a good work day yesterday. So hopefully they've got it out of their system. The good news is they're feeling really confident. They've had success 2 weeks in a row, and they feel really good about themselves, and that goes a long way. That really does go a long way. There's not all that uncertainty about, are we going to play good? I think they're going to go in thinking we're going to play good, and that's a huge difference maker. Yeah.
Hey, speaking of playing good, I remember we all had the same thought on Jared Verse when he signed here, that it would take a while for him to get to Jermaine Johnson's level of play. I saw, and I wish I could find the tweet, but I cannot. But there was a pro scout who came out the day that has him as the 9th overall player in the draft. Maybe one day Jermaine Johnson will be as good as Jared Verse.
Isn't that crazy? Well, yes. I mean, it was to hit the lottery like that 2 years in a row is incredible. It really is. I mean, I think it was more of us hedging our bets, thinking there's no way we can get that lucky, right?
Right.
How can we get that lucky? That can't happen. And sure enough, it did. The guy is just, I mean, like I said, his acceleration is elite as far as, rushing the passer and closing on ball carriers and whatnot. And you can't coach that, and that's what he's such a natural talent, and he is still raw in a lot of ways. So that's
Yes.
probably why he's so highly thought of. They can still mold him. He doesn't have a lot of bad habits to break.
Yeah, and listen, this is the PFF draft, mock draft, top 10. So listen, PFF.
Those PFF grades, I looked at those the other day. I'm going,
I know, I do too.
That's crazy. I don't know how they grade their people.
Listen, I've talked to 2 college coaches this year because we are referencing some on the Osceola, including in my previews, and they're like, it's half truth, half fiction. The people that are grading these things can't absolutely know. So I use it for things that are obvious, like pressures and targeted, that kind of thing. But but anyway, that's amazing that this kid has had the kind of season that he's had. And when we thought we might have him for 2 or 3 years, and if this is anywhere near accurate, you got to listen. They have him in front of Brian Breezy, the kid from Clemson that's going to be an unbelievable player, and just behind Miles Murphy, another Clemson guy. So he would be if this played out, he would be the 3rd defensive lineman / defensive end selected in the draft. But anyway, it's amazing how far he's come. In such a short time and what he's done for this defense. But Fish, what are your thoughts on maybe him coming back? I mean, are you hearing anything?
I don't see any possible way. I mean, the kid's going to be a 1st-round pick, and pass rushers are basically you can write a lottery ticket. You could put pressure on quarterbacks; they're in high demand, and he's one of the best. I personally thought, and I brought this up early in the season, I didn't think he'd be to this level till next year. Like, I really thought halfway through the season he'd start to pick it up, and then we'd get him for 1 more year, and then next year you would start to see this. Never did I think he'd get there this quickly, mainly because I thought the adjustment from FCS to this level would be too great for him. I really did. You saw that athleticism when he played against Syracuse, but he still made a lot of mistakes in that game, and I just didn't think he would get to this level this quickly. You're talking about a guy that's going to go down as one of the best pass rushers and defensive ends to ever walk through this school, and there's been a ton of great ones. So it shows you that this kid was all about business. He didn't care about the outside stuff, and he took his job serious. He came in, and this is from hard work. You don't get to where he's at because he was so far behind as far as certain things playing at this level. And he's put in the hard work, and it's paid off, and Florida State's benefited from it. But I don't see him staying another year. I mean, I personally would advise him to leave if I was someone close to him, because he's going to get paid, and he's going to get paid a lot. So,
yeah, he has nothing to gain, as far as that goes, staying another year. So you might as well start cashing checks now.
Yeah, well, he can if he stays. I mean, they got an NIL program, so they're not going to be for the same amount he's going to be cashing in for the NFL. There's no doubt about that.
The key is that second NFL contract, and if you can get that first one done that much sooner, the better off you are.
Well, I'm sure that the FSU recruiting / player personnel department is scouring college film, trying to figure out a way to find a 3rd defensive end for the 3rd year in a row that can come in and have a instant impact. And it's kind of we'll talk about the transfer portal later, because I was listening to I can't remember which SEC coach talk about how these transfer relationships are being built before these kids announce in the portal. We'll talk about that later as we get towards more recruiting. But I'm hoping that the Florida State staff is trying to figure out a way to replace Lovett and Verse for next year. So that'll be great. All right, guys. So we'll come back with our picks for Florida State, Syracuse at the end of the show. But the second version of the college football playoff rankings came out. And I'd like to pat myself on the back for saying that Clemson did not belong last week, and they did not, as they were throttled by a really average Notre Dame team. So
you called that. I didn't think they could play that bad.
They did. It was awful. And listen, they don't have a quarterback, and obviously they didn't have a very good defense. And listen, they've got an interesting game. We'll talk about this a little bit later. An interesting game against Louisville this week. So that'll be they're at home, which helps. But anyway, Georgia #1, Ohio State 2, Michigan 3. TCU seems to be the team that everyone's picking on this year. They're undefeated, or this week they're undefeated, 4th ranked in the poll. Then Tennessee, Oregon, LSU, USC, that's 5 through 8, and then Alabama, Clemson 9 through 10. Fish, if you had to rank your college football playoff rankings, how would you have them?
I'd have Georgia 1, Michigan 2, Ohio State 3, and I'd probably put Tennessee in the top 4. They lost to a very good Georgia team, and it showed last week they weren't ready to play in a game like that, and Georgia's been in a lot of them the last few years. So I think those would be my top 4. TCU's going to lose one of these next 3 games. I've watched them. I'm not, they're having a really good year, but I think if they play Tennessee, Michigan, Ohio State, Georgia, even Alabama or LSU, I think they would lose to any of those teams. So I'd have Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State 3, Tennessee 4.
Yeah. Sully, what about you?
Yeah, I'd have the same thing. I'd have exactly the same thing. I think Tennessee. I mean, you look at that and you say, okay, if they played them, who would win? And I don't. I mean, you have to go way down the line for me before I'd say TCU beat any of those teams.
I kind of agree. I think Tennessee, I would slot at 4. I would actually go Michigan 2, Ohio State 3, and then of course.
Well, that'll take care of itself.
Yeah, that will take care of itself. But what really gets interesting is how the optics of that Michigan Ohio State games play out if they both undefeated going into that game. And then you look at Tennessee. The best thing it could have done for itself is lose. I mean, not that it tried, obviously, but listen, they could benefit by not going to the SEC championship game.
Yeah, you'd rather be in that game and take your chances, because even if you lose in that game, how many times has the team that lost still made it in? I mean, the SEC is going to get the benefit of the doubt either way. So I think they would have had, if they go 11-1 and they had won the SEC championship and got in a game with Alabama or whatever, or whoever, LSU, whoever comes out of that West, if they have one loss, they're still going to get in. So I don't. Those teams have the benefit of the doubt of losing in that conference where other teams don't. So.
And how crazy is it to think that Oregon and LSU are just after how they started their seasons? Oregon got clobbered by Georgia in the first game. Of course, new staff, I think you do have to take that into consideration. Dan Lanning, first-time head coach with an entire new staff, first time with their players. And then, of course, LSU, who has a loss to Florida State, and I cannot remember who the other loss is to off the top of my head. But long story short, 7-2. They're on the outside looking in. I don't think USC is as good as Alabama, and maybe not even as good as Clemson. But yeah, I think Tennessee is going to end up being in the college football playoff. And if something happened with Oregon, LSU, or if, to your point, if something happens with TCU or Oregon, LSU is going to leapfrog them and could be 5 or 6 in the next 2 weeks. Do you see any way 3 SEC teams end up in this college football playoff?
No, because they won't let that happen.
If USC has 1 loss and Oregon and LSU has 2 losses, USC will get in. They'll jump LSU. I think the 1-2 loss teams are going to have a hard time getting in if SC gets in with only 1 loss. That means SC would have run the table, won the Pac-12 championship, being in the market they're in.
But I don't think they're going to play. I don't think they're going to beat UCLA, and I don't think they're going to.
No, they may not, but if they do win out, they're not going to go. They're not going to fall behind a 2-loss LSU team. I just don't see that happening.
All right. Well, listen, it's going to be fascinating to watch this week. There are some big games on the national landscape that could have an impact on the playoff, and one in particular is TCU, number 4 TCU at number 18 Texas, and that's where I kind of want to start with our game picks. Listen, Texas is the favorite at Texas. Sully, how do you see this one playing out as far as who wins?
Yeah, I mean, I hadn't seen TCU play all that much. So I'm probably not the one to really ask on this one, but I mean, Texas has had some tough games. I don't TCU schedule. Not sure who they've played that's been in. Again, I'm call it up right here, but at Texas, Texas will be jacked up. TCU, you know what? I think TCU's probably right. It's kind of the Tennessee thing, getting in the college football playoff. Are they ready for that moment? I won't say that. I'll pick Texas here just because.
Yeah, I mean,
who you got?
I mean, I'm gonna take Texas. It's at Texas. I mean, they got 3 tough games in a row right here. TCU, if they win out, it's impressive. At TCU, at Baylor, versus Iowa State. If Ewers plays at a high level, and the running back has the game I expect from him, you got to figure Texas is going to be up for this game, kind of because they're sort of an underdog in this game, even if I don't know what the spread is on the game, but they'll be considered an underdog since TCU.
I think it's around 3 to 6, somewhere in there.
Yeah, so
I mean they've had some good wins, but they've all been shootouts.
Yeah.
I mean they beat Oklahoma 55-24. They beat Kansas 38-31. They beat Oklahoma State 43-40.
Yeah, I don't
Kansas State 38-28. I mean they're giving up a lot of points.
Yeah, I'm not saying Texas is going to slow them down. I just think if the quarterback for Texas gets hot, I believe he can keep up with TCU and pull the upset.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, another ranked matchup, but there's not a ton of them this week. Washington at Oregon. Oregon obviously is favored, 8-1. Washington 7-2. They had a quick start to the season. Listen, Bo Nix and Oregon are having one of those weird. I mean, I don't think anybody saw this coming into this season, but I'm going to take Oregon over Washington. Who you guys got?
Yeah, it's got to be Oregon, especially in Oregon. So at Outson, they're going to be jacked up.
Fish.
Yeah, I had the chance to watch Washington play Oregon State last week. They've got a quarterback that could put up a lot of yards. I mean, the kid's from, he's done a very good job. They don't have a great running game. I just think Oregon, being at home in front of their stadium, they got a major edge. They're just running on all cylinders. Washington's a nice little team this year. The coach has done a good job, but they're going to get into a buzzsaw this week. I see Oregon winning. I don't want to say comfortably because I said that last week, but I feel like they'll win this game.
Well, speaking of comfortably, there's another number 9 Alabama goes to, I believe, number 12, number 16 Ole Miss. They're somewhere in there, but they are a 12-point favorite, which does not. I have a hard time wrapping my head around that. It makes me want to go put some money on Ole Miss this weekend. But who you got, Sully, and is the sky falling in Tuscaloosa?
I tell you what, they don't look great, do they? Like I said last week, it's not the same Alabama team. I was in Oxford last time they beat Alabama down there. That was quite the deal. You know what? Something makes me want to pick Ole Miss on this one. It really does. I just, it's hard to go against Saban. He's going to try to get it right, but I just think they got too much going on. Ole Miss is going to be probably been pointing to this one for a while. Tough game last week for Alabama. A little hangover maybe. A little Ole Miss. I'll go Ole Miss.
Fish.
Yeah, I have not been on the Alabama bandwagon all season. You saw it last year with the O-line. I think Gibbs is a good player, but I don't think Gibbs is the ideal running back for Nick Saban. Nick likes guys that could pick up the 4 or 5 yards consistently, and eventually if the big run comes, it's great. It's part of their offense because they wear teams down. Gibbs is hit or miss. He hits a 70-yard run and he'll score, but they can't run the same type of offense with Gibbs like they've run in years past. And Alabama's wide receivers are not – they don't have Henry Ruggs. They don't have Jerry Jeudy. They don't have Calvin Ridley. They don't have Devontae Smith. They don't have those guys. They got good receivers. Bryce Young's a very good quarterback. I just think Ole Miss being at home, that's a lot of points, 12. I mean, I could see Alabama winning, but I see that number it being under that number. I'm going to take Ole Miss too, like Mark, in the upset, straight up win over Alabama.
Well, I agree with everything that y'all just said, and I agree. I'm going to go. I don't pick against Alabama much, but I'm going Ole Miss in this. Yeah. I think they run the ball very well, and listen, like you said,
it's not the same offensive line. It's not the Alabama offensive line we're used to seeing. That's the biggest difference.
Yeah, they have not been as good on offense as they have been in years past, and I think that'll help Ole Miss a little bit. Another strange line: South Carolina at Florida. South Carolina 6-3, Florida 5-4, trying to get bowl eligible, an 8-point favorite in the Swamp. Listen, I know Vegas. They win more than they lose, but something just tells me this is one of those strange. This is one of those games that Shane Beamer will have his team up for. He's found a way to beat some people that when they're not expecting it. And I'm going to go with the Gamecocks over Florida, and really, Florida's. I don't know who they got after South Carolina. I'm assuming it's a Sun Belt team or 1AA, but I got South Carolina.
To me, it all depends which Anthony Richardson shows up. I mean, you get the one that played last week; they're tough to beat. If you get the guy that's one hopping passes and throwing picks, then it's a totally different situation. It totally depends on that.
Well, I know they beat who they played last week, but there were a lot of dudes missing.
It was A&M, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's A&M because of that flu. I mean, they had about half their starters out on defense, several out on offense. I don't know how Florida beat who they lined up against, but I think that game gets a lot harder for them to win if Texas A&M's at full capacity. So
regardless, the quarterback played well.
Yep.
He played well, and it's in Gainesville. Now the other thing about it, well, no, it's not a noon game; it's a 3:00 game. So, no, I'm gonna pick the Gators on this one. I think they got it right. South Carolina, to me, they just, I guess I saw them play Georgia and I saw them play somebody else, Kentucky maybe. They're just not. They got to do everything exactly right. And not that Florida doesn't, but to me, they have to do everything exactly right. And I just don't think that's a recipe for success when you're going to Gainesville.
Fish, who you got?
Yeah, I can't pick South Carolina. I've watched them. That's not an enjoyable team to watch. And I mean, it's just everything seems difficult for them to do. And I'm not a fan of their quarterback. I wasn't a fan of his when he was at Oklahoma. I think this game will be one that Florida will win by 10 points or more. I just don't see this game being close. It's just my opinion. I think Florida being at home, they're the better football team right now. They played well last week. I see them keeping that thing rolling and finishing strong the rest of this year.
Well, I was really hoping Florida would have to come in here to get bowl eligible. That's the only reason I'm picking South Carolina.
Do it.
That's what I want to see. And probably the most heavily anticipated 3-6 versus 3-6 game in college football history. It would only be more fun if Brian Harsin was going to be at this game. Texas A&M at Auburn. It would have been so much more fun if Harsin. I mean, just for the sheer optics of it all. If Harsin and Fisher were on the opposing sidelines for this one. Looks like they're going to have the quarterback back, the freshman back for Jimbo. Listen to a little bit of his press conference on Monday. He does envision having that guy back. I said he would be at practice and ready to go. Who do you guys have A&M on the Plains on Saturday night?
It's a bad football bowl.
Yes, it is.
I mean, I don't know where to start on this one. I really don't. Both of them are in disarray. I think both of them just want to get the season over and move on. It's just I don't even know if I want to watch this one. I would say I would say Auburn maybe has the fired coach or new coach bump a little bit, trying to rally around their guy, Cadillac, right? I guess that's an edge. I don't know. And A&M they're just in total disarray. They really are. And I know they were missing a lot of guys last week and all that, but they still don't have any juice. They're just, I think they're just trying to get the season over and move on. But so I'm going to say Auburn on this one.
Wow, I am surprised. Fish?
Yeah, I like what I saw from Wegman 2 weeks ago. I wanted to see what he did because I thought coming out of high school last year, he was one of the top 3 or 4 quarterbacks. He was in that top group, in my opinion. He impressed me. I was excited to see what he would do against Florida. I thought they had a really legit shot at beating Florida with him in there. Him being out, I think, is a big deal. I still think they got more juice. I think Auburn's done. And not that A&M's not done, but A&M, those guys, if they have any pride or whatever, they're going to put it together this weekend. We'll see. They still got a lot of good, talented young kids that just the lack of experience and whatever they got, but we'll see what happens. I'm going to take A&M to go in there and pull out a minor upset.
Yeah, and I think Auburn is favored by 1.5, which absolutely shocks me. But anyway, yeah, listen, I'm going to go with Texas A&M, and listen. There, you got a staff at Auburn that's looking for jobs. They don't, and I'm sure they're still concentrating and doing what they're supposed to do. I mean, all coaches work hard in that situation. You're basically, auditioning to some extent. But anyway, I think I think it's going to be hard for them to beat Texas A&M given everything that's going on in Auburn right now. Looking for a new coach. I think that freshman quarterback is better than anything that Auburn has lining up at quarterback. They got that great running back, A-Chain. Their defense has played better of late, although they got 41 against Florida, but they had some guys missing. So I'm going Texas A&M and Jimbo. I think he will beat a staff with an interim coach and new coordinator on offense. I think they'll get after him.
Is Jimbo auditioning?
He maybe auditioning for West Virginia and several others. We'll see. Maybe USF. Come back. All right, so quickly let's go through the ACC matchups because some of these games will have an impact on the pecking order for bowls, which is always fun to talk about the fact that Florida State's going back to a bowl. And as we get past this week, we'll talk about what bowls. But 5-4 Pitt at 3-6 UVA. I'm going with Pitt in this one. They have not been very good, not near as good as I thought they were going to be this year, but Virginia's just not a very good offensive football team.
100% Pitt for all those reasons. Virginia's just not very good.
Fish?
I can't pick Virginia. I don't care. Yeah, I'd take every team in the ACC over Virginia right now in a game. Maybe Boston College could beat them, but I can't beat them. But I'll take Pitt.
When I look at the names of these next two teams, and I look at the line from Vegas, it's hard. I just never figured that in the 2020s that we would see this, even 2010s. Virginia Tech 2-7, a 9.5-point underdog at Duke, who is 6-3, and will have this game could play a factor into the pecking order of bowls. Although I think Florida State would be taken before Duke in any situation. But I'm going with Duke in this one, and I don't think it's going to be close.
Yeah, I mean, I might pick Virginia to beat Virginia Tech. So,
Good luck.
Yeah. But so by virtue of that, yeah, Duke's just playing good ball right now, and they're confident.
Fish?
Man, Virginia Tech's a mess. I like the quarterback Riley Leonard at Duke. I think what the coach over there, Elko's done some phenomenal job. He possibly could be up for Coach of the Year in the ACC at this point. He probably will be. I like Duke to win handily in this game.
All right. Louisville 6-3 at number 10, Clemson 8-1. The Tigers are a 7-point favorite at home. Louisville is one of the hotter teams in the ACC right now. They've rolled off some wins after struggling early. I'm going with the Cards in this one. I think that I'm not saying Clemson's the sky's falling there, but something's not what it used to be. So I'm going to take Louisville with a close, hard-fought win over the Tigers in Death Valley.
Is Dabo going to stick with DJ?
I have not listened to Dabo this week, but he said after the Syracuse game that listen, DJ's our starting quarterback. Now I know they replaced him in the game at Notre Dame, so I'll put it this way: I bet we see two quarterbacks at Clemson.
Yes, that's the thing. I mean, with DJ playing bad, the bad DJ makes a bad Clemson. It just does. Cunningham, I guess he seems like he must be getting pretty hot, right? And we know how tough that can be with a running quarterback. But Clemson does defensively is where Clemson kind of stifled me last week. I can't believe they played that bad. But I don't think Louisville has the ability to get that physical. I mean, Notre Dame, does have NFL type offensive linemen. I don't think Louisville does, and by virtue of that, I think Clemson pulls it out. But I think it's going to be pretty close. I think it's going to be a good game.
Fish.
Yeah, I just don't see Clemson losing back-to-back games. They're going to be at home. I got to figure they'll bounce back. It'd be kind of surprising to me to see them lose again. I'll take Clemson. It probably won't be it'll probably be within 3 points. It'll probably be under that number, but I like Clemson to hold on to win at home. If not, they've got some questions to answer in the offseason if they go on a lose 2 or 3, 2 more games, 1 or 2 more games this year. People are going to start questioning Dabo and hiring within this last offseason. But I like Clemson to win the game.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if Jeff Scott ended up back at Clemson now that you mentioned that. Boston College at NC State. I'm assuming we're all taking NC State in a blowout.
Yeah, that freshman quarterback showed me more than I thought he had. So, yeah, definitely NC State.
Yeah, you were right, Fish. I didn't even know they had that guy on the roster.
He's a real deal. MJ Morris. The game comes easy to him. Boston College is not a good football team this year. You saw it at Florida State. They handled them. Pretty much everybody's handled them this year. And I like NC State.
Even Connecticut.
Yeah, Connecticut, freaking heck. And that's a bad Connecticut football team.
That's a bad loss.
Well, speaking of bad football teams, Miami 4-5 at Georgia Tech 4-5. Georgia Tech is the favorite in this ball game, guys. Hey, and maybe they should be. When I listened to Dino Babers talk on Monday at his press conference, he said in his press conference that of Florida State's last 2 wins, he thought Georgia Tech was the more impressive team that they beat. So,
wow.
Listen, this would be. I'm going to go with Georgia Tech. I mean, they got the best quarterback. Freshman's better than anything Miami's got.
Well, if they got a quarterback, then they got the best quarterback.
Yeah, because Tyler Van Dyke, I mean, if you're Tyler Van Dyke, you're not playing the rest of this year with that shoulder. I mean, he's got NFL potential. But, yeah, I'm going with Georgia Tech. Who you guys got?
Go ahead, Fish.
Yeah, you don't want to pick this crap, and neither do I, man. I really can we have a tie? Can both these teams go 0-0 and they don't, neither of them score, and then one of them scores on a 2-point conversion to win 2-0 and triple overtime? But I don't know. I'll take Miami to bounce back. Georgia Tech's terrible. I don't know. I don't know who's going to win. I'll take Miami. I'll be the one that goes opposite of you guys. I'll take Miami. I
think Miami has the better defense.
I don't feel good about picking them, by the way. So
I think Miami has the better defense. I think Georgia Tech probably has the better offense, which is not saying much on either case. So I'm going to take Georgia Tech. I think Miami's going to lead. I think Miami. This might be a case where we beat them twice.
Oh man, you don't feel good about it though.
No, I'm not going to put any money on it. But
anybody would be crazy to put money on this game.
The under.
Yeah. I mean, they actually lose point. I mean, you could finish with a negative score in this game.
It's 44 over under. They could easily go under 44. So
Yeah, that'd be
I
a
would
good
take
bet.
the under in a heartbeat in this ball game. Lord have mercy. I might have to make a bet on this game.
I mean, Miami hasn't scored a touchdown in 9 quarters. That's incredible.
Yep.
I mean, you've fallen to 1 with a fumble or something. But anyways.
All right. Let's go. This actually will be a pretty good game, I think. 8-1 North Carolina, who's virtually wrapped up the Coastal, versus a reeling Wake Forest team, 6-3, but has a very good offense. Wake is still the favorite. It's at home for Wake. Who you guys got in this one?
What's going on with Sam Hartman? He's thrown He's thrown he threw 4 picks 2 weeks ago and 3 last week. Is that right?
Yeah, he's struggled a little bit.
I didn't see that coming. But the problem is North Carolina. I don't think they really hadn't settled defensively.
They gotten a little bit better, but yeah, still not great.
Still not great. Wake Forest at home. Yeah, I'm gonna go with Wake Forest here, I think.
Fish.
I'll go with I'll see. Oh man, I love May.
I know you love the quarterback at North.
I do love Drake May.
I'll take Wake Forest in the upset. I think Sam will bounce back and they'll put up it's going to be a high scoring game. I could see like a 55-50 game,
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, another App State type game. All right.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm with y'all guys. I'm going with Wake. I think their offense will be too much over. I think their offense is better than North Carolina's defense, and I'm not sure. I think it's listen, North Carolina's good on offense, but I think Wake's a more experienced team, and I think it's at home, so I'm gonna go with Wake Forest. All right, guys. Now FSU looking for its 7th win of the season. 6.5 point favorite on the road at Syracuse. Also 6-3 on senior night for the Q's Orange seniors. Who you got, Fish?
I got Florida State. I think the game will be tighter than people think. I just think it's hard to come back that second. They had a big win last week. Actually, 2 big wins in a row. I think there'll be a little bit of a letdown, a little bit slow, but Florida State will get it cranking midway through the second or third quarter and pull away. But I see this game being closer. I'm going to take Florida State just because they're winning right now, and it's hard to go against a team playing as well as they are.
All right. Well, I've gone back and forth on this. I think that sometimes we're not giving this Syracuse team enough credit, and there's some brand bias. We don't think of Syracuse as they have not been a great team under Dino Babers. Only 1 winning season outside of this one, and they still have not had a winning season. If they go 6-6, that's just a non-losing season. I do think that I do agree with you, Fish. It might be a little slow out of the gates for Florida State, but I just, if Florida State can hold onto the ball and control time of possession, which you guys have talked about, running the ball, I just think Florida State's got too much for them. And Florida State, I think those kids they're playing to go 9-3. I think they want to prove to people that they were undervalued coming into this game. And we have not seen a lot of apathy from this team. They seem to be resilient week in and week out. So I'm going to go Florida State, and I'm not sure it'll be a blowout, but I think that Florida State will find enough to get it done. And now that they can throw the ball against Syracuse, they'll have a shot to blow them out. But I think the Florida State running game is just going to be too much against Syracuse. So I'm going to go with Florida State by anywhere from 8 to 12 points.
So last week I kind of felt like FSU could blow out Miami, but I was afraid to say it. I was afraid to jinx them. And I think the light has really come on for FSU. I think those guys kind of get it now. I think they understand. I think they know how to win. You don't see the stupid mistakes that you've seen in the past. You see better execution all the way around on both sides of the ball. I just think they're going to go in really confident. I don't think Syracuse has the personnel to stick with us, top of the roster down. I think we wear them out, and I think we win big. I really do. I think we win 38-41, maybe 21-28, somewhere in there.
Well, a win almost guarantees you 8 wins, and a ninth with Florida, if depending on what kind of team comes in here. So listen, they're definitely on pace to beat my season preseason expectations, which I had them 7-5. Of course, now I want to make sure I say this. I said when making some preseason predictions, you need to factor in a plus or minus 2. All right, so I'm going to be right either way. I'm going to play
whatever.
I'm going to play the. I'm going to use.
That's not how that works.
I'm going to play the fine print version of my. But I did clarify that. But anyway, yeah. Listen, I think you're right, Mark. I think they are. I think that we talked about maybe it's not necessarily peaking, but certainly this team seems to have found its stride, and it was a confident team we thought coming into the year, and it's more confident. And I just think that my sense of things is that Mike and the staff are not going to let this team lose focus. In fact, I would think that it was probably a great week after beating Miami to be a little tough on these kids during the week, not damper down expectations, to continue to reinforce expectations. So I'm with you on that. I think that they found something that they are. I think they've been bought in all season, but I think we'll see evidence of this team being consistent. And listen, they did not enjoy that 3-game losing streak very much, and I don't think they want to taste defeat again. So I'm with you on that. But guys, listen, we ran a little bit longer than I thought. Mark and I will be back with First Impressions live on Osceola YouTube, Osceola, and the Osceola's Facebook and Twitter pages directly after the FSU at Syracuse ends. Probably within 10 to 15 minutes, we will go live. So if you want to follow us on YouTube, you can sign up for alerts. So we will go live about 10 minutes after the game. Obviously, you can follow the Osceola Facebook page and Twitter page, but we will link that from StreamYard to those 3 platforms, and hope you'll join us then. Fish, we need to jump on soon and do a Reeling the Men. Florida State offered 2 JUCO defensive linemen this week, so Fish and I will be taping a Reeling the Men recruiting update in the next day to 3 days, depending on Fish's schedule. But a lot going on. But we'll be back next week with another Osceola Tailgate prior to the Louisiana game. And Mark, I'm going to let you sign us off as always.
Go Noles.